So welcome to the inaugural edition of Smart Bear Live, which is a new thing that we're trying, and if it's awesome, then we'll do more, and if it's not, then we will never do it again. So I'm Jason Cohen. Probably everybody here knows that. I'm a Smart Bear, not Smart Bear, but a Smart Bear online. And this is Joshua Baer, B-A-E-R,
No
different
relation.
Bear, no relation. Josh is the founder of Other Inbox right now, and previously the founder of Skylist and Unsub Central, both of which he sold already. And he's also the inventor of Capital Factory, which is Austin's sort of version of like Techstars or Y Combinator, that kind of thing, which we'll talk about in just a second. But tonight, of course, the point is to answer some questions, get some startups unstuck, and hopefully be entertaining too in the process. I don't know. Now, if you cast your eyes downward into your hand, many of you will notice it's in the shape of a C. And the reason it's in the shape of a C is because it's holding beer. Yummy beer from Black Star Co-op here in Austin, and that is provided courtesy of Capital Factory, buying everybody a beer or a soda if that's what you like. And since Josh is the yay beer, since Josh is the inventor of Capital Factory and the buyer of the beer by extension, I will let him describe Capital Factory, because I think that's a good excuse to talk about Factory, that we got this from it.
Great. So Capital Factory is I think the in phrase for it is an accelerator. Some people call it an incubator. It's really like, it's kind of like its own thing. But really it's all about helping early stage companies to get to the next level, which most of them is either getting their first customers, getting profitable, raising a round of funding, the obvious kind of things most early stage companies are thinking about. And so what happens is we have a competition effectively each year. We get a couple hundred companies that apply from around the country and around the world. We pick 5, and some of the people that have been in the program are here tonight. Those 5 companies each get 20 grand in cash. They get a place to hang out during the summer with all the other companies and where lots of the mentors are. And then there's 20 mentors, all that have built and sold, usually multiple companies. Some have taken companies public, some have done a lot of other things. And we meet with them every week, and we yell at them every week, in a constructive way, and really try to help them push things forward and get them focused on the right things, figure out what's really important to them. A lot of companies come in and end up changing their name or their business model or lots of other things along the way. But I think everybody feels like they really get a lot out of it. It's really helpful. So we have our 3rd class going right now, 5 really awesome companies, which we haven't announced yet. And if you want to find out about them, we're going to be launching them all at Demo Day on September 7th, so about a month away. And something we're doing a little different. Demo Day has always been, this is our 3rd one, it's been just an incredible event. We have about 300 people. It's always sold out. It's a ton of investors, a bunch of press, and then a couple, some entrepreneurs that get in. We try to let all the investors in first. And the first year, Mike Maples Jr. was one of the keynotes. He's a really prolific early stage investor. He's involved in Twitter and a bunch of other really great companies. Last year, Naval Ravikant, who founded AngelList, among a lot of other great things he's done, but something really relevant right now, which is if you are a startup and you're raising money and you aren't on AngelList, that's your one takeaway you should come away from tonight, is go sign up for AngelList, because it's really, really helpful. And Dave McClure from 500 Startups was also one of our speakers last year. And so this year we've got Bob Metcalf, who invented Ethernet and founded 3Com and is now a professor at the University of Texas, and Brian Sharples, who founded HomeAway, which just went public, so a really great Austin success story. And then we're going to have our 5 companies, and then something we've never done before is we're going to have 10 other Austin companies also getting to present as well, because we have all these investors there and all these people as well. So, if we can, we want to help other companies as well and create a bigger draw for more investors to come. So we've got most of those spots filled, but if you know of a great company that's ideally is fundraising right now and so would want to get in front of a lot of investors, please have them reach out to me, because we'd love to find out about them and see if we can help them get funded.
All right, cool. Also, the Twitter hashtag is SBLive, so in case anybody's doing that. So let's bring out the first victim. Who's the first victim, Sarah?
First up is David R.
David R. Okay. So remember, just say name and company name. That's it. Name. Come up here. You get to sit up here the whole time too. There's your little microphone. This is going to be great. Just name and company name, and that's it to start with.
David, my company name's Race Techs.
Race Techs, like T-E-X?
The other one.
T-E-C-H-S?
You got it.
Wow, race techs. So if I have to guess what this is, I would say, I think it's pretty obvious, right? Like if I'm a racer, I'm planning a race, or maybe if I'm in a race and I want to use technology to get better, so maybe it's measuring my heart rate or my performance, showing me over time, predicting. That's what I would guess it is. What do you think it is?
You've obviously never been in a race car. No, I think it's I think it's like all the measurement stuff around like how like the G forces in the car and how fast it goes and what your lap time is and what your fuel emissions are, or like.
Okay, so in one sentence, what is it?
Sure, we're event management and performance measurement technology
Event management.
for running, cycling, and triathlon events.
Oh, we both went to cars.
Okay.
It translates well into the market.
Okay.
The customer understands what it is.
And so what's the question?
The question is best practices for, what are the best practices for calculating total addressable market, customer acquisition cost, and lifetime value of that customer?
Well, let's okay, so I don't know about best practice. Let's do your customer lifetime value, your market size, right? Like that's really the question, right? So you said it was
two very different problems.
events, yeah. So events for triathlons and what else?
Running, cycling, and triathlon events.
Okay, so running, cycling, and swimming,
Correct.
but not swimming.
Or, well, it could be duathlons. Yes, there's a number of combinations there.
Okay, well, how many events are there a year in just America that do that?
Approximately 60,000 events.
Wow, that's a lot of triathlons
And running and cycling.
and running and cycling. How much is running out of all that? It seems like running is really popular.
Running would be over half.
Yeah.
The fastest growing sector is triathlons. Market sizing is one of the challenges as a result of there being no Gartner report, and we've gone to
You don't need those anyway.
Nike and Adidas and Under Armour, and some of those executives are advisors to our company, and it's a challenge for those companies as well.
So it may be a challenge, but they sell into the whole market, so they have no idea how big it is?
It's this specific portion of the market,
Yeah.
which would be multi-sport.
Well, how much do you think you can charge per event?
Our market, or our margins, are something that I wouldn't put onto a podcast, but
No, not margins. Like when you talk to them, you're like, I'm going to charge you $100. I'm going to charge you $1,000. What number do you tell?
What's an
Well,
average bill?
okay, so for
Power of 10.
total addressable market that we have.
No.
Today.
Just you talk to one event planner and you say, I'm going to charge you $100 and you're going to get this, or 1,000.
Sure.
Like, what's the number
So
roughly?
that ranges from 1,000 to 100,000, depending on the size of the event.
Whoa, 100,000 for one event? Ooh, I like that. Cool.
So I think with this kind of thing, it's like you can try to sound big or you can try to sound smart.
Under promise, over deliver.
That wasn't the direction I was going, but you can, it's like some people try to make it sound like, oh, look how big the market is, and in doing so, they usually talk about things that aren't really the market. In which case, all the investors just blow off whatever you say anyway, because everybody knows that it's like, oh, it's $1 billion, but you look at it and like, well, it's not really $1 billion, because then you start to slice it down all these different ways. Well, it's not really, we don't get all of that, or this much is spent on the sport, but they're not spending that on the stuff that I do, right? And so either you're going to be in the here's the size of the whole market because I have no idea, and so it's really big, and you can just assume that even though I'm not getting the whole thing, there's a lot of play in there, or there's room to create more value. So if you can prove, like, look, people spend a lot on races in general, so there's room for me to take something out of it. That's one direction to go. Or you can like be really razor sharp and be like, look, there's this many events a year. There's 60,000 events. I think they make on average $15,000 off each event. I think I can take 10% of that in fees. So that's 1,500 times 60,000, and boom, that's the size of my market, right? And
Sure.
It's going to sound a lot smaller, but people are going to believe it and think, okay, that's really what it is, and you're going to sound a lot smarter when you talk about it.
And by the way, it is smaller. It isn't the whole market, right? All this like, I'm going to get 1% of, no. Like, that's not the deal, and that's not how anybody thinks, actually, that I'm going to get 1% of whatever. So,
But this is your chance to sound smart. This is your chance to actually make it look like you actually do understand what your market is,
Well,
and
and-
where
Right.
those things going. And the other thing I'd say is, like, you want to triangulate. So usually you don't have good information, especially if you're in a startup and it's not some really established thing. So it's great if you can look at a public company, because lots of public companies have to disclose all kinds of information, and so you can go pour through their filings and their S1s and their other things and find out how many customers they have, or what their average payment is, and lots of other things that you could use to extrapolate it, or what you could see what they think the size of the market is and what piece they have. But often what you're going to end up doing is triangulating. You're going to say, okay, well, I think there's 60,000 things, and I think the average thing they could pay is this, and so that gives you one number. And then another way to calculate it is there's this many runners, And if I can get this many of them engaged, this many participate in races, and if I get each one of them to pay a certain amount per runner, it comes out this. You can kind of come at it 3 different ways and see that triangulates and makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah, the other thing is you can go bottom up as well, and you can say, look, we've already got a dozen people saying that they'll do it, and I wasn't even trying. We could easily get 1,000 of those 60,000 over the next year or two. We just can't. And if we did I don't know what the average is. Let's just suppose it's $5,000 out of the 1 to 100,000. So we could be a $5 million company a year just if we get to 1,000. That sounds really easy. Now that's not a pitch to a VC because it's still $5 million a year, which I think to most people in this room, and me included, sounds like a really nice little business. For a VC looking for a huge Twitter-like exit, it's not. Right. But then again, you're in a market where there isn't going to be a huge Twitter-like exit anyway. If you're talking to an angel who would love to have a business that's doing single-digit millions in revenue and is profitable and is worth probably 10 times that. That sounds great and very doable, and then it doesn't matter how big the market is. Because the point is, this is a small piece of whatever it is, and it's very plausible you could get there.
Could I follow up with a question?
Oh, please. I mean, we haven't gotten to lifetime value yet.
Okay, well, with size of the market, do you address what you currently have a product to sell to that existing market, or what we're planning to build based on those revenues from the cash generating engine?
You got to sell the dream. It's all. Yeah,
okay,
what you're gonna
so
do.
the follow-on as well.
Yeah, when you're raising money, the investor's betting on the next N years, so it has to be on whatever you're going to do. On the other hand, your proof that you're the right person to do it and they should bet on you is what you have today. So it is both today because it's proof that there is something and it's a business and people do want generally what you're talking about, and then of course most of it is the vision of and it can be this. But I'm not going to believe you can even do that unless I believe that you're doing it today in some capacity.
Okay.
So that's why those very hard numbers are useful.
Thank you.
So in lifetime value, usually you talk about, you can talk about that for any business, of course, but usually it's recurring. So as far as, I know there's usually annual races, but is the idea that you sign them up for multiple years, or is this really one race at a time?
It varies. It could be single race, 100 participants. We also just landed a contract that's 600,000 participants.
600,000 what is that? Can you say?
It's no.
It's huge.
I'm going to right
It's huge. How many could? How?
It's
probably
not a single event.
Oh,
That's
it's
my
not.
point.
Okay.
It's a single director with multiple events.
Oh, that's fantastic. So it sounds like you don't have a single lifetime value because you have different demographics of customer. You have these like one-offs, and the lifetime value is the one-off. Now you hope they come back next year. They probably will if it's good software, right? So you could maybe argue that the lifetime value is twice whatever you'd get in 1 year because maybe they come back, or you could be conservative and say 1 or something, 1.5. That'd be all be fair.
Around for 25 years.
But they may not get you again.
Understood.
That's the point, right? So you might like say 1.5 because maybe they would, maybe they wouldn't, kind of a thing, right? Because the probability of anything happening is 50-50, right? It'll happen or it won't. So that's easy. And then you have these big guys where it's a huge transaction, and maybe you can lock them to a big contract for a cheaper rate or something, which is super valuable. So I feel like, and then again, like it's also easy because you're talking about a 3-month contract, or sorry, a 3-year contract, or whatever, or a whole year contract, whatever the thing is. So I feel like you want to segment, and I think if you do segment, it'll be really obvious how to do the lifetime value of each of those segments. And then the question is, well, how many of those are there? And I don't think you have to have a perfect answer to that.
Okay.
Right? I think you've just shown like how it can grow in these different ways.
So the cushion is imperfection across the board for any of these calculations.
Yeah, I think when you're selling the dream, you sell big. When you're trying to prove what you have already done, and this is why they should invest in you in the first place, because you're the right person for it, you get super concrete and conservative, so you don't look like you're crazy. You look like you're telling the truth. And then the reason they're investing in you is this bigger vision.
And one of the things I'd say in order to how to navigate the selling the vision and the where we are now is it's great. It's okay to like paint this really great vision and just make sure it's no one's ever confused about which part you're talking about. That like when you're talking about the vision, they understand that's the vision, and when they don't hear the pitch and then think like, oh, well that's already all built, because then they're going to be really disappointed when they find out that it's not really all built and it doesn't do all that. So you don't have to dwell on it. You can say like, okay, well, here's the vision, blah blah blah, and then you can have one slide at the end that says, okay, here's where we are now. We've gotten up to this point. We've proven this, this, and this, and like you put yourself on that path, on that trajectory, and you still spent 90% of the time sitting there talking about all this, what it's going to be, and everything else, and you get them all bought in and excited about that. But by the end of it, they don't walk away feeling like you pulled something over their head. You know, they totally understand. Okay, there's the vision, and they're this far along, and that's what they've proven so far.
I guess the maybe the final thing is, this may not be a market that's super big, and that is fine as long as that's how you're pitching what it is.
And don't pretend that it is.
Yeah.
No, we just have a pivot plan down the road.
Yeah, but sort
is
of
that
like
because the market's not big, or that because it doesn't work?
No, we see this as the way to access that larger market.
I don't know if I would call that a pivot.
Okay.
A pivot's usually the connotation of pivot is
Redirect.
yeah, something didn't work, so I'm trying something else.
Got
You
it.
know, like
yeah, it's sort of like this is step one, and then that's going to be phase two, where we
Yeah,
get
it's
10 times
phase
bigger.
one, phase two, yeah.
Right, and so that's fine. So I would not even have heard not having heard your pitch yet. I would guess that phase one makes a lot of sense, and you probably have lots of data and stuff you're already doing to prove that you can probably do phase one. And phase two, you probably have no data, maybe like I had this great meeting once kind of a thing, and no software and not really any data other than that you do have some experience and you're going to be developing it, which is fine because that is also normal. But that's not going to be that compelling in terms of proving like I know this is going to be in our future. So maybe the way you could cast it is there's many like ways to 10x this business. So here's the core business that's pretty easy to argue we can get. We have already one way which we're pretty sure is a way to 10x what this business is that we're not going to do tomorrow, but that this is going to lead to. There are other ways too. We're going to find them. We're going to find them because we're building a real business, and we'll be able to use all that to find it. This is one of them, but you don't want to hang your hat only on the one, because A, we all know you'll learn something and it'll be something else by that time, and B, you don't want it to be only one, because then if it doesn't work out that that's the one, then what?
There's a great Kit McClanahan has a blog. Who's an investor here in Austin. Has a blog called reoverthinking.com, and for me, it's one of my like definitive. He has a set of blog posts there about what your investor deck should be and what each slide should be, and it's like that's like my Bible for where to start if you're going to go make an investor deck. And particularly has a slide on there that he says is the money slide, and it's the phase one, phase two, phase three kind of vision. And his example was something to do with, I think, routers. So they were doing they were selling, this was 15, 20 years ago, selling routers into the home. And so it was like, okay, first we go sell these cheap routers that people put in their house, and it, lets them get internet stuff. But then once we've got routers in a bunch of houses, now we can layer on this, this service layer on top of it, where now service providers can remotely check the router and see what problems are and get information back and sell services on top of it. And then once we've got a bunch of services on top of it, well then we can go and we can start delivering content down through the routers or something else, right? And it showed this kind of vision where it was like, okay, first we can dominate this place, and that by itself is good. That's a good business. But then once we've got that puts us in a position then, okay, our business really shifts. Then we can get into this larger opportunity, right? Got this next piece. And kind of showing that vision in this really succinct, succinct kind of way. And one other thing with that's consistent with that is Bob Metcalf has chided me that my 5 secrets to a killer elevator pitch should be 3 secrets to a killer elevator pitch, and that everything should be in 3s, just because that's what is easier for people to remember. So same kind of thing with that. It's like, don't have 2 phases, have 3 phases, because that's just easy for everybody to understand and to deal with.
Okay, good. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, sweet. Excellent. So before we bring out the next person, I got to tell you this. So recently at my company, WordPress Engine, that's wpengine.com. At my sorry, that was a little ad talk. So at my company, we were in a bind and we needed to get a bunch of dedicated servers because our stuff is all about performance and speed and all that. We need to get a bunch of dedicated servers up and fast, and it turned out, so like you probably are thinking that what I'm about to say is that Rackspace came to the rescue, because if you live in this area of the world, or as it says on all our local news stations in Central Texas, right? Everything, your Central Texas news leader. We're Central Texas, not Austin. Just say Austin. It's okay. If you don't live in Austin, you probably kind of associate yourself with Austin anyway. It's fine. Just say Austin. Anyway. Actually, that's not true, because I know people in Hutto, and I live in Hutto. I don't live in Austin. I live in Hutto. Right. All right. Anyway, sorry. Like 3 people from Hutto are like, okay. So anyway, you think of Rackspace because they sponsor a lot of stuff and they do whatnot. But the fact is that, especially for startups like us, and I imagine you guys, they're expensive, and I don't want to say anything bad about them. Nothing wrong with them, of course. But in this case, the people that came to my rescue was a company called Server Beach, which is also from Central Texas, because they're also in San Antonio. In fact, they I think they and Rackspace poach people off each other all the time. So it's all the same thing, really. I think.
Richard, you found Server Beach?
Yeah,
it's the same founder.
yeah. So okay, so anyway, they're the ones that came to the rescue. They've got great prices. They also have good service, though. I think a lot of hosting companies do now, or at least when they want to, and they're really entrepreneur friendly. And in particular, like for example, having lower prices makes them more entrepreneur friendly. I think that's like part of it. And in particular, they're sponsoring tonight as well. In fact, all the pizza that you got back there, maybe in the other hand, that's not a C shape. It's kind of in that pizza claw shape. That's that's from Server Beach. And in fact, there's two guys here from Server Beach. Over here, there's like the sales guy looking guy in the white shirt. That's Kevin. Right, and then there's like the cool guy over there. I guess you're both sales guys, really, right? None of the sales guys. That's okay though. They're really nice sales. See, you think of the sales guys are going to be like slick like guys, right? And they're not. And that just shows you, because if the sales guys aren't that bad, then you know the rest of everybody's going to be super cool. So this is a good thing, right? Okay. So anyway, talk to them, and they have offered everybody here. And I don't know if they're talking about the thousands of people on the podcast. We will find out maybe later. But if you tweet at is it at Server Beach? Is that would you like someone to tweet? Is someone listening to at Server Beach?
I mean, if anybody really needed hosting, and the idea was to reward you for coming here tonight. And if you needed a dedicated server, or you're not happy with the hosting you're getting today, you're welcome to come to us, and you'll get, I guess, the 30% off, no setup fee, and it'll be on a month-to-month agreement, so you can try it 30 days at a time. So it's very low risk, which is a beautiful thing, being entrepreneurs. But just to kind of reward you, we'd like to sweeten the deal as well as sponsor it.
Yeah, 30% off, no setup, and they brought shirts and pizza. So I mean, it's kind of ridiculous. They're obviously losing a lot of money, so that we appreciate that. So, okay, let's do victim number 2.
Okay, next up is Renee.
Uh-oh. All right.
Oh, I'm used to it. They kick me in the nuts every week for all last summer.
So name and company is not going to work because we know. So let's get right into
Just
it.
make something up.
I'm Renee with Pizza Claw.
Pizza claw. Okay. Well, I would think, I don't like, when I eat pizza, like my fingers get all greasy, and I like greasy pizza, but I don't like greasy fingers. And so I imagine this is like some kind of pizza glove or something I could get into. And it's like, it's only got 3 finger holes, so in case, even if I'm missing a digit, it still works for me. And that's how much forethought you have, because you're focused. Am I right?
Yep, that's the company.
We're done.
All right.
And I want to make my pizza claws faster.
And more secure.
So
With a smile.
So forecast is it's just a really simple way of telling your friends where you'll be later. It's like a check-in tells your friends where you are now. Forecast tells your friends where you'll be later. So my question is something that we've always wrestled with at our company because we're a social company. So when do you transition from focusing on users and viral growth, which is sort of like the really hard nut to crack when you're doing a social company, to caring about customers and business model? Should that be happening in parallel the whole time, or should you just say fuck one and concentrate entirely on one before the other?
Yeah, that's a good question. I always go towards business model. Always. That's just me personally. If it doesn't make money, to me it's a hobby and all that. However, you have a business where, if it's a social business, quote unquote, maybe a better way to describe it is a business in which if there's under than a certain number of people doing it, whatever the thing is, whether it's free or not free and whatever they're doing, if there's not at least a certain kind of critical mass of people, it's kind of useless, period. There is no business model of any sort ever. It's impossible unless there's but if there is, not only is it valuable, but it gets more and more valuable as people are on it. All of a sudden, and this is like what Twitter is, Twitter's worth, some ridiculous billions of dollars. 8 billion, some stupid thing. They're not making any money. Nobody even knows how. They admit they don't know how. Everybody, it should be a joke, but it's not because it's got so much and it's so valuable somehow. We'll just figure it out. Because it is true that if they can just figure out what it is, boof, we're good, like Facebook did, right?
Yeah.
So I hate saying this, but the answer is like, you need a lot of people before the business model, and this is a good reason for VC. This is a good reason to go get a whole bunch of money so that you can afford to spend time getting people. But then your number one thing has to be growth. Nothing has to be more important than growth. Nothing.
So where's that inflection point where you start to worry about business models so you don't become Twitter?
Right. So it's going to be
Like
different.
that would be a problem to have, right?
Yeah, it's going to be different for each company. I think you kind of, when you ask the question, you already define socials to mean
Right.
we don't have to make money.
Well,
Like that was kind of like the way you asked the question. It was like if you're a social business, like a social business to be something that uses social, that doesn't have to be something that needs to be built without making money. There's social businesses that there's social monitoring tools, there's social, things for helping salespeople close deals. They make money right away, right? So your definition of social is, we don't know how to make money. We're just going to try to get a lot of people using it. And so if that's your model, which is the Twitter model, right, then I think, like Jason said, you got to be totally focused on growth, because that's all that it is. So Other Inbox was not a social business, but was a we don't know how to make money business at the beginning, or at least we didn't have that part done yet. And so we knew, in order for us to really make money, we think we really need about 5 million users, and we knew we needed just 1 million to even test it. To even do anything, we need 1 million users. And so we had to just focus on getting and that number is a little vague, but I have a sense of that just from testing we've done, and we honed that number over time, and it turned out that was about the right number. And so until we had 1 million users, we couldn't make any money. It wasn't even we got to focus on making money. There was nothing to focus on. It was just focus on going and getting users. And we still tried to do that a few times and found that it was totally useless and not worthwhile. So then once we got to 1 million users, we were at a point where we could test some stuff. It still actually wasn't that important, because still the amount of money we were going to make off it wasn't that significant, or it wasn't as significant as obviously as I wanted it to be. It's probably not enough to get profitable just on that. And so that's kind of the next inflection point, is if you get to a point where if you were to focus on the business model, you could make enough money that you could be cash flow positive. Well, that's a good decision to have to make. Now you're okay, so should we focus on that and get cash flow positive, or should we just keep growing as fast as we can? And so now, there's a great security that comes from being cash flow neutral, because now you don't have to raise money. And if you have a social app that's growing, even at any kind of rate, like Other Inbox is, we have almost any given day somewhere between 5,000 and 10,000 people a day signing up. So if we can just hang out, we're getting more valuable every day, right? If we can get to cash flow neutral, then it's okay to just hang out and let more users come in. Now we don't have to figure out the business model. We just need to be able to make enough money to keep the servers running and keep growing. And that's completely different than maybe figuring it out, which is identifying the thing that's going to really scale into a big exciting business.
Now, at the same time, just having growth of users, even if they're quote unquote active by some definition that's reasonable, is still not necessarily valuable. So what I would do also is think of this as, is just getting the growth, is a mass of users an asset? Is it a thing that has value? Would someone buy that thing because it has some kind of intrinsic value? So for example, with your check-ins, so there's a bunch of people checking in. Is that important? If there's 1 million people checking in at least once a week, is there a myriad of ways you could imagine that that's valuable? Maybe there is. Maybe it's it's everything from you could advertise to them, you could get patterns, there's data, local businesses could do stuff, maybe, et cetera. Now, or is this something that's kind of vacuous? So in fact, one of the problems with Twitter is, so if I handed you Twitter, you still wouldn't know what to do with it. All the data is already public, so it's not having it is valuable. If having it, that data were valuable, you could predict something, or you could sell some kind of analytics on it that nobody else could get. That would be valuable, but it's not, because it's all open. Okay, so that's not part of the asset. What is the asset of having that stuff? And so I'm not sure what it is. I mean, well, there's different ideas, but we're not talking about Twitter anyway. So with Other Inbox is categorizing email. There's all kinds of interesting things that might come out of there. So one of the things that's public is there's a service called subjectlines.es, subject lines is the URL, and you can tell already from in there what that means. It's, if I'm seeing all this email and what gets delivered, I can tell you what subject lines in emails tend to get delivered better. That's a holy grail of email marketing. What subject lines get delivered better? Holy crap, that's insane. That's an asset to have that. Now, what are some other ways? I don't know. If you're looking at email all day, I mean, I shouldn't say that, because that's not, I mean, that's taking it too far. There's all these privacy things. They're not looking at email all day. I shouldn't say that.
Jason's reading emails all day.
Yeah. But if you have access, let's just say anonymous access to email, it's kind of unreal what kinds of things might be possible. And so that's definitely an asset. Whereas is checking an asset? So actually that's a question. Is saying where I'm going to be an asset? If it is, then as it grows, you are getting something of value. And that growth is not just, we'll figure it out, it's magical. No, it is a valuable asset. And yeah, we still have to figure it out, but we're sure it's an asset somehow. But is it? Is checking in an asset? And Foursquare and Goal, as far as I know so far, haven't figured out if it is an asset, how to think of it that way.
Because you think Foursquare's at that size.
Right.
They're big enough they could start monetizing it now.
Right.
They've started to put some deals in.
It seems like they're trying to put that effort in right now, where that's the front foot of their business right now, is figuring out that business model.
Right.
Yeah.
So
But I think with Foursquare, it's actually in question. I think as much as everyone gets the idea of like, I'm going to give you a coupon for checking in somewhere a lot or for trying to get you to go, like, I still think there's a little bit of a question of how big does that business really get and what's real. I would argue, I don't know if Jason would agree, I think with Twitter, I think most people don't question it. They realize that like there's a lot of really valuable communication and information going through Twitter, and they still don't exactly know how to monetize it, but they know that I think I think it's still really, really valuable, and it's obvious to me that it's really, really valuable. Tying back to the question from before about phases as well, we talked about. So for Other Inbox, it ties into those same pieces of what's the critical mass to get them. So phase 1 was get to 1 million users, and now we can, for example, we can't really we can do a little bit of targeted advertising, but the audience, believe it or not, isn't that big for doing that. We can now just start to pull out the subject lines data and say like, okay, let's look for some trends. Let's see what's happening. And we get a taste of what comes next. Now, at 5 million users, we know which emails are receipts. And right now, if we tried to target something and say like, let's show this ad to everybody that bought something from an airline in the past month, we'd get like 50,000 people or like 100,000 people. It's starting to get, airlines are probably a good one. That's starting to get interesting. But it's like at 5 million, it gets to the point where like we could be like, okay, let's get everyone that's bought something from Best Buy. And there's like 150,000 people, that match that criteria. And now that's big enough to be interesting to somebody. And so, it's another kind of phase milestone. When we get to 1 million users, we can start to pull out some trend data. When we get to 5 million users, we can actually start to target really interesting segments. When we get to 100 million users, I don't know. Obviously, we take over the world. But
Cool.
So, but that's a non-rhetorical question. What is it about checking into the future that is an asset growing? And
any different than Foursquare?
yeah, and one answer could be it's the same as Foursquare in the sense that if Foursquare figures it out, then so will we. And that's not the worst answer because a lot of people are betting on Foursquare and Gowalla. It's to me, it's not a terrific answer because it means I don't know either.
Them, right.
Yeah, and I know, I hate the argument but they could just do it. Anybody could just do anything, whatever.
Right.
I don't care. But if that's, but you could say if Foursquare tries 20 things and only one works, that's a bad sign. That means there's not a lot of ways for this to work. Maybe not even one. And so should you have some ideas? I don't know that you have to have an idea of monetization, but you should have an argument for why it's an asset. Why there is a plausible out on this. There will be a way to monetize it because there's something of intrinsic value of this happening already. For Twitter, you could argue it's that people are using it and communicating kind of everything from overthrowing governments, oh my God, to trivial stuff. Everything is happening there. And it's happening on them. And so in the same way that a broadcast network has intrinsic value because they're the ones showing NBC at night, that there is value there, there's going to be value there. What is the intrinsic asset that you can define in there?
Can I say what I
Please.
think it is and have you kick it back?
Yeah.
So I think the thing that's really valuable at us and different than the check-ins, is that we're catching people in a state of mind where they haven't really made their mind up. This is an assumption, hasn't been tested yet, that they're in a state of mind where they're more influenced because they're deciding where they're going to go. They're looking for some place to go. So you're catching them in a different cycle than you are when they're already someplace.
But isn't also the idea currently that I tell you, I broadcast where I'm going to be because I would like to have a happy happenstance of someone meeting me there, and if part of the model also is that you're diverting me from that, is to kind of break the social part.
There's 2 points there. I think if you catch someone right before they make a forecast, perhaps they've said they're going to a restaurant or something, you suggest a different restaurant so you can bias them that way. If they've already said where they're going, you could suggest a complimentary place to go afterwards. I'm going to a movie, here's a bar that's nearby. And I think that's different than Foursquare because Foursquare is very much present tense, whereas we're future tense, and if it's in the future, you can still affect the future.
There's got to be some weird demo / presentation about what you just said. We know the future. We can still change it. In a world where Twitter is rich. Sweet.
Yeah.
I don't think that's bad at all.
Okay. Cool. That's generally what I say. So.
I think it's also kind of testable. Like I could see like, doing weird things to 1% of your
Absolutely.
user base.
So that's our next phase. Is like, so to define like what I think of as a social company, it's one where you start with doing user development as opposed to customer development, where you're solving a user problem that people aren't going to pay for directly, but you're solving a problem nonetheless. And I think companies that aren't social ones are ones that are solving a problem for somebody that will actually pay you directly. I think that's my like.
It sounds to me like a freemium. I still think they're abusing social.
Yeah, but we never expect our users to pay for anything ever. It's not like there's a free one and a more expensive one. And I think that's like...
It's an ad-supported model then. It's still not social.
Yeah, so maybe that's a better way.
Social means people interacting.
Right. So yeah, there needs to be another term other than just calling it a social one. But like doing that customer development, like when does that start? Do we start that experiments now? But I guess that goes back to what we started.
What's the minimum you need to do it? Like, there's a certain logical part of like, okay.
I think we could start doing it right now. It's all about that distraction. Like, I think there's some business models we could test right now. And like, I mean, we've got our users that are pretty evenly distributed around the globe. So I think there's some business models you could test better than other ones. Like, if we tested like a hyper-local thing, that wouldn't really work because you don't have the density. So we could test.
I don't think you should worry about it.
Okay. Thank you.
If you need to get lots of people forecasting.
All right.
You're not there yet. Like when
totally.
When there's really a lot of people forecasting, then you're like, okay, now let's figure out how to make my outfit.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think whoever's financing this part of it, I think a perfectly valid thing to say is the goal of this round is to get, and you should have a goal of what you plausibly could get on this round before you. But that's the goal. Is like, we're doing this to get this much activity. We do have some ideas of what that means and you do. Yeah. So like it's not like we're just running into a tunnel with no light at the end. Like we have some ideas of how this could work. But obviously that's a distraction right now. And if we can show this kind of growth curve that looks all pretty, we know we'll get the next round because there's outs and the big growing thing anyway. And that's the plan. That's the phase 2 is the next round. And I think planning for that is actually a good thing.
Punt on the business model until Series B.
Well, I would have that plausibleness to it, that it's an asset, there's things we can do, there's things we can manipulate, here's why it's not Foursquare. Those are vital.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's just like, oh, it's Foursquare except weirder and you're not Foursquare, right?
That was our first pitch.
Did it work? No? Okay.
I think the other thing you need to be thinking about as you're fundraising there too is setting those goals, saying, look, our goal is here to do this. And especially because you don't plan on being cash flow positive or neutral at that point, you want to be finding investors now that are signing up for the whole road.
Right.
They're like, you're going like, okay, this is what we're going to do. You're going to give me $1 million now, and we're going to get 1 million people using it. Once we get 1 million people using it, you're going to give me $2 million.
Yeah, right.
And
Right.
And you get them to go like, yeah, when you get to 1 million users, I'm going to give you $2 million, right? And like that doesn't really mean they're going to do it, unfortunately. But at least you explicitly set these expectations, and then you're going to come back to them and be like, look, I did what I said I was going to do. Right.
The fact is, it is nebulous, so you need people up for this particular kind of company, which there's tons of.
Yeah.
Like everyone that invested in Gowalla and Foursquare, for example, right? It's the same kind of investment, really. So, yeah.
Cool. I really appreciate it, guys.
Thanks. Cool. All right. So I guess everybody noticed we're in this awesome co-working space. How many people this is their first time to CoSpace? Wow, like at least half? So now you know what an awesome place CoSpace is. This is like the coolest co-working space, maybe the coolest space at all in North Austin. And it's even more cool when it's not full of folding chairs and stuff borrowed from next door, and it actually has see all these like cool blue chairs? It's like that, like the nice furniture and nice desks, not fold out tables or anything. It's a really nice space. It's really bright, as you can see from all the windows. There's lots of events like this, there's classes, it's all kinds of fun stuff. This is a neat place to be. However, we would still not be able to be here because we could, but like it would cost us $100 an hour, I think, to rent out the place. And a company called Group Charger is footing the bill for that. See, I'm just going through all the people who paid for stuff because I'm too cheap to pay for anything. See, that's how this works. And so Group Charger actually bought us the space here at CoSpace for tonight. And Group Charger is a neat company. As the name might suggest, they help group managers add a lot of value to their groups. And this is what I mean. So let's say you run a church group or an alumni association or something like a co-working space like this. You're used to things like newsletters and event announcements, which are fine. Everybody does that, but it's not really, it doesn't really make a community out of it, and it doesn't really add that much value. It's just a billboard. So, for example, one of the things I do all the time is I'm always introducing people to each other, right? Like I know some iOS developer comes up, wants business, and I don't know anything he can do at the moment, so I say, I don't know. And he wants to join a startup, and then I see some other startup, and they need an iOS developer, and so I introduce them, right? This happens constantly. And if you're a group manager, it really ought to be happening constantly, right? So I'm writing these emails with the paragraphs, with the bios of the people, and I got to come up with a good short bio for everybody. I mean, it's sort of mundane and it takes a lot of time, but it's super valuable for the people. And as a group manager, of course, it'd be incredible if you were doing this like 5 times a day. And that's one of the things that Group Charger does is it facilitates those kinds of introductions and makes those super fast. And there's other things that it does too, but that's just one example. So if you manage any group, Group Charger is like a much better way to actually add value to the members themselves. And so you can go to groupcharger.com and check it out if you want. And that's Curtis's company. There's Curtis. Woo! Hey, Curtis. Yeah. So you can go talk to him about it too if you think it's cool. So thanks to them for the space. So, okay, third victim. Kyle's the third victim. Name and company only. Name and company.
My name's Kyle Simpson. My sort of parent side company is Getify Solutions, but the project I want to talk to you about is called Go Look At.
Go look at. I think it's like Hot or Not, except the idea is that you saw some chick or a guy at a club, and then you take a picture, you're like, oh my god, but then it's geolocated and it's combined with where you're gonna be or where you hope you're gonna be, and you send it out and you're like, dude, you got to go look at this chick, and then that hopefully brings friends in, and then if they do, you get free drinks at the bar, and that's how you make money out of
I
it.
think I need to pivot to that.
We should talk to these guys.
I'm gonna go with that.
All right, so what is Go Look At? It's a great name. What is Go Look At?
Go Look At is it's a 3-tiered thing. It's basically.
Oh God, no.
Hold on.
Just tell me what it's not a 3-tier thing. Just tell me what it is.
It is not URL shortening, but URL bettering. It is social bookmark sharing, and it is link safety.
Well, let's pick one of those things. What's the best one?
The one that's built.
Okay, which one's that one?
URL bettering.
Better. What is that? Better means nothing to me. What is that?
So most people think about URL shortening.
No, just what is
URL
bettering? It's better
best
because
URL is shorter. I say the best URL makes more sense to people. It tells you what it is, and it gives you more data about that URL than the original URL.
So give me one example, because I don't get this at all. I think if it's short, then I can say more stupid stuff in my Twitter thing that comes before the little short URL.
Yeah, so I say you say that in the URL rather than as disconnected text about the URL.
So it's http:// oh my god, you have to look at this. It's so awesome. It's if Twitter's finally going to make money, they just announced it .com or something.
Sure. Now, so consider YouTube URLs. They don't tell you anything at all about the content of that. When you shorten it to a bit.ly link, you also don't know anything about the content of that video. You don't know if it's safe for work, etc.
Okay.
But if you have a shortened URL that says funny/cat/video, you know exactly looking at that URL what it is. You also have data about that URL that can start to categorize information and make it easier to find.
But doesn't it also have to be short so I can fit it in a tweet? Because that's where most people use this
because
stuff.
if I'm writing a tweet and I write out the sentence, go check out this funny video about cats, that's much longer than bit.ly/funny/cat/video.
Okay, so this is
a self-descriptive URL that's shorter than the text that I would write in a tweet.
So I still use it in Twitter or I don't?
You can use it anywhere.
But that's what you expect, is that I would use it in Twitter and just say
People are
less.
using it, yes.
Oh, they are using it. How many people are using this?
It's a built system. I've got 60 people using it. There's been 3,000 created and over 200,000 clicks on those created.
Oh, that's a lot.
Yeah. So the key here.
But before we start, I just want to say, my question is a little bit higher level than what the guy before was asking. So I'm not specifically asking about how to monetize this idea or whether the idea is good. I'm saying if you have worked on trying to monetize an idea like this idea, and you struggle with the monetization of an idea, does that mean that you should abandon the idea and move on?
Usually.
So you have tried to monetize it in what ways?
I haven't actually put monetization into code, but I have.
But you just said you tried and failed.
Done a lot of talking to people about if I monetize it this way, does it make sense? And I get a lot of feedback.
Think up a way.
I failed to have made any money on it, but it also doesn't cost me anything since I host it on my own server.
Well, yes, it does. It costs the most valuable thing, which is all of your time and attention.
True.
Yeah, it costs a lot because if this is
But
a
I
bad
don't get a
idea,
bill at the end of the month. So
no, yeah,
that's good.
no, that's not true. Because if this is a bad idea, you're wasting the thing that you cannot buy and cannot get back.
Okay. Yeah.
And it's not like you're gonna get like have better memory and be faster and smarter 10 years from now. None of us are, right? Except maybe these guys are really young, so maybe them, but not us. So this is really valuable time.
So the general answer is definitely no. Usually, if you can't figure out anyone to make money off it, unless you're super passionate about it and think it's worth doing and not getting paid for it, then you should stop. Now, the only exception is if this is so mega viral and so you think this could be so big that so many people could use it that it could be Twitter and it doesn't matter, and it's usually not. So that's why I said usually the answer is no. Now, in your particular case, I think the whole business model is, does it make more people click on it? That's like all it is. And if it does, that's super valuable.
Yeah.
Like that's a URL that's how you pitch. The pitch is not. It's better. It's more descriptive. It's more people click on it.
Yeah.
And the
That's
reason-
that's what you have to lead with. You have to like we make URLs that more people click on.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
then everybody gets it, right? And so all you need to do is test that, which should be really easy to test, and just prove that more people click on it. And if you can go and put a thing that says, hey, when you use this one instead of Bitly, 10% more people click on it.
That's
Boom,
it.
You're
Case-
done.
case closed.
Like, it's a whole thing, and you're done, and it's really valuable. So that sounds awesome. Go do
So,
that.
so this is the feature benefit that we'll get down the sidetrack because it's useful. This is the feature benefit thing. You came in and said what it is it puts things in the URL. No, it
No,
gets
it
more
makes more
clicks.
people click
Now,
on it.
the
That's all,
the
yeah.
reason it gets more people to click on it is they understand that it's safe for work, or they understand that or whatever it is, that's better because it's descriptive, and so they're willing to click. That's why they click on it,
Yeah. Yep.
which is super interesting because it's also different. But that's not really the thing. Anything that got more people to click on it, I would use. In fact, I did because a long time, well, not that long ago, OkCupid, you know how they have these great charts with all this bizarre stuff. Well, someone did something like that. And I don't know if it was them, but someone did something like that where they said. They showed all the URL shorteners on Twitter and the propensity for people to click on a link based on the shortener, which you'd think there's no difference. It's just short. It's just like you said. It's a random jumble of characters. Who gives a shit? Bitly by far clicked more often, and not more Bitly clicks just because it's used more. No, right? More clicks per
People more
link.
likely to click on it just because it's big.
Just because it's Bitly. Well, after that, I just switched to Bitly and never looked back. Is that still true? I don't care because it's just. I mean, I got my shortener, but I just did. And I promise you, a lot of people did when they saw that. So if you can say the same thing for whatever reason, who cares? And it's more descriptive. Oh, bonus, right?
Right.
But so that'll get us off the sidetrack. So also there's so many ways to monetize, and if the issue is just if people do click more or some other benefit, maybe that is obviously the number one. But if there's some kind of benefit, that is one. Then there could be lots of ways. So for example, there's a website. Let me Google this for you.
Yeah.
You know that site? Do you know that they make lots of money?
No, I didn't.
You know how they make lots of money?
Google affiliate linking? I don't know. How?
Because when you go to make one, because it's so fun and funny to make one, there's a little ad on the bottom. Now, if you're trying to make like $8 million a year, forget about it. But if you're just trying to make like a cool lifestyle business, or you say like, okay, this isn't a big business, but like, hey, if this could just give me a couple grand a month, even that'd be kind of cool, and it'd pay for servers and pay for something, the next thing, and maybe the next thing's more URL stuff, and you'll build on that. But like, it's a place to start, and it's a way for people to know who I am. And by the way, when I do my next thing, which is also URL shortening-ish, because it's security or one of these other things, I'll use this as a way to get eyeballs just to see that I exist, because I'll just put it in my own ad slot. In other words, you're building something kind of nice. So like, is that a company? No, but that doesn't mean it's not valuable, especially if it's not taking a lot of your time and a lot of money. Then you need more than 60 people, and you need more than that. But like, you could do that. You could just use that model and you're done. Like, it doesn't have to be more than
totally
that.
talked you down. This is big. You should go just go make a lot of money helping people get more clicks, more people click on things.
Well,
and that's a
true.
great example of like elevator pitch stuff. Like, right, like this, your best pitch is all fourth grade language. It's we get more people to click on your links. You don't have to say anything else. Nothing no fancy words. No, we are better. No, just we get more people to click on your links.
Yeah,
You use our links, more people click on it. Like, you just say it 10 times, really simple, and like, that's all you have to ever do. And then they'll be asking, well, how do you do that? And then you get to answer all the other cool stuff.
Yeah, forget all this tiers and better. My reaction is what everyone's thinking, except what they do is they just turn off and stop listening to you instead of doing what I did, which is be rude and throw it in your face.
Yeah.
Right? That is what they're doing, I guarantee you. Well, there's 3 tiers. Oh my God,
What
there's 3
does it tell us now? What
tiers.
did you think do?
Gets more people to click on links.
It does? What is it called?
It's called Go Look At.
Well, that makes sense. It says go look at it. I'm going to do it. That's a great name. It fits. By the way, how are you going to... So let's go down this because it's so big if you can do it. So,
I really want to know more about this.
yeah, so how would you measure whether it gets more clicks? What would you do? Because if you can answer that, you could set it up, whatever that is, and then you could find out. And if it's not, you could do things to try to make it so, and you could seek this. So how could you measure that?
Yeah, so I have thought about that kind of idea, like how do I actually figure out if somebody's going to click on funny/cat/video type of link more than the YouTube link. I can't think of any other way other than A/B testing and tweeting, but maybe there are other ideas. But I thought about creating URLs to really hot, popular things that people are talking about the internet. Create 2 URLs, one bit.ly URL and one with more descriptive tags, or maybe a couple of versions of some descriptive tags. Kind of like an SEO person would try to figure out the best things that they could write into the URL. Put those out there on Twitter and then watch the statistic. I've already got the statistic generation.
So the hard
I just
parts
have to
are
watch
is
it.
someone's likelihood to click on it is going to vary a lot based on their relationship between the follower and the person they're following. So you can't like have me tweet it and have him tweet it and compare like he's got 2,000 followers and I've got 2,000 followers. It just doesn't work. So I think what you'd want to look for is like something that's got recurring tweets. Where like something where they're regularly like once a week or once a month they do something to drive people, and that way they can like alternate that maybe and try to get the same audience and the same thing. But
So somebody that does 5 tweets a day, have them take one day to do one set of links and the next day to do it.
I mean, it's never going to be perfect, but yeah, then you're at least comparing like the same set of people and the same.
Yeah, and you have another problem, which is you don't have enough N. You don't have enough data points. So, for example, let's say you had just millions and millions of people were clicking on stuff all the time, every day. And every day 1 million people clicked on something that you made. Well, then you could do stuff like you could say, it's going to be your shortener and it's going to be random letters. It's not going to be tagged, and this and that. And you'd have so much data that you could, all of that noise, all of that error could be canceled out. Because there's so much data, but you're not there. And like little things like if I retweeted one and it went, right, then that would skew something, right? Now, on the other hand, one thing that does happen on Twitter I've noticed is that people reshorten. Like I always tweet, I have a new post on Monday when I have one, right? And every kind of weird URL shortener comes out. I mean, like Bitly and the Tco and all that garbage, and then lots of different Bitly ones. Like, shouldn't Bitly just pick the one random set of letters? Like, I know like there's an infinite number of letters, but like still, don't you want to collapse the space a little bit? But they don't, I guess. So, that happens. So maybe you do have data even when it does that because it gets mushed like that. But it still needs to be like huge N for you to have, for you to be able to say all the error cancels out and I win, right?
I disagree. I think you can just. I mean, you get the simplest test in the world that says, look, this went to 100 people, and this many people clicked. We did another test, another 100 people, and this many more. And that's like it's just all incremental. Then you get to do a bigger test, and then you get to do a bigger test. Like, go get the simplest, smallest test you can find, and just show lift, and then you'll get to do a bigger test. And you'll get to do a bigger test. And you get to do a bigger test. And as long as that keeps working, you're good.
Yeah, I think the biggest danger that I was trying to figure out in terms of comparing links is it's really hard to find 2 links that actually have like the same interest and value to people. Like a funny cats video against a video from TechCrunch, not going to have the same click.
No, it needs to be the same video.
It's the same thing.
I
Same
was
message,
just
too.
searching Google, trying to figure out if you could like do some kind of like buy search keywords and load that as the URL. And I was trying to see what it actually showed you of the URL. And it's not like a perfect test, but you could, at some level, be showing 2 ads, and the only thing that's different between them is one's got a Bitly URL in it, one's got yours, and do more people click. And it's not perfect, but like that might be interesting. I mean, pretty easy to do.
Okay, here's a weird idea. Sometimes these tiny little psychological things have huge effects, right? What if it just by having go look at .com/something, anything, even random letters again, makes people click it more? I don't know if that's true, but it's a command. Maybe it's true. Like sometimes that stuff works, at least at the
so you're talking about the vanity portion of the URL? Is that what you
Well, I'm just saying, do you have go look at.com?
I have golookat.com, I have
Okay.
golook.at, I have
So-
geo.ly, and a
All
whole
right.
bunch of others.
So what if it's true, and this would be pretty easy to test, that just go look at.com/random letters is better than bit.ly/random letters? That's something that you could do without all this taggy stuff. If you could show any lift there, number one, maybe there's some already you can get people to start using it because of the lift. But then number 2, like, okay, now you can get into the complicated stuff, like different tags. Which tags should I put NSFW? What do I have to ask from the user first in order to tag it? Like, that all sounds interesting, but more complicated than just it's another shortener that people click more, which just the domain name might do. So you might be able to have an even simpler way to do that. Here's a weird idea. What if you did duplicate tweets? Like you literally tweeted in rapid succession, like just 1 second after another, the exact same tweet with the two things. You randomize the order that you do that in, and you just do that, even though it's duplicate tweets and that sucks. But like people will sort of get over it, and your immediate friends can understand because you'll just tell them what you're doing. Your immediate friends can understand, and maybe even randomize in their own minds, hopefully, because those 60 people, they could understand this, right?
You have to get someone else to do that, which is even harder. You have to do it. You have to get someone with a lot of followers to do it. You know, like it's like you tweet in the forest and.
Just one thing to point out about how hard it is. It doesn't require anything about my service or the interface for you to tag. That's part of the viral nature of this. If I see a link that has funny/video, and then I think it needs the word cats on it, when I share it, I add the word cats. It didn't require anything. I just captured.
Yeah, but nobody knows that.
I know, but
because this person,
a psychological thing that I have to get over.
This isn't. That sounds very hard for me because the person doing this doesn't know you and they don't understand this thing. They don't know they can do that. And there's in no other place on the internet can I just add crap to the end of a URL and it works. So that no one is going to do that until they really understand who you are. I wouldn't depend on any of that. Something that they'll just do just like they would anything else. But if golookat.com is a great thing. If that alone does it, man, you're.
Yeah, so his website, shorten, tag, share, better. Not just shorter, but better URL, right? And that just needs to say, get more people to click on your links. And like, that's your headline. And like, whole thing.
Try us for a week and see. Now, how are they going to know? They don't have a way to test it either. So what? As long as they don't see anything go down, right? I'm serious. Why not?
Okay.
I would try. I would certainly try it for a week just to see. I don't know how I would measure it or know it, but if something good happened to happen during that week anyway, I'd probably be a huge believer. You know that story about the guy who wants to he wants you to send him $1,000 a year for stock picking advice. So this is what he does. He starts out by sending you a letter, and it says next week the stock market will go up. And you're like, all right, whatever, and it does. Okay, and you get another letter in the mail. This week it's going to go up again. All right, it does. Next, you get another letter, this time going down. And it does. It does happen 6 times, 8 times in a row. You're like, this guy's amazing. I'm definitely sending him the $1,000. But what happened was, he started by sending out 32,000 letters. Half of them said it's going to go up, half of them said it would go down. Now, whichever one was right, he went to that half, and he sent more, right? And so, there's going to be this segment of people that are like, holy crap, and is definitely going to sign up for $1,000 a year to get this stupid letter that means nothing. So, I don't see why you can't take advantage of that effect and say, your shit's going to go up this week, right? And, all these people are going to try it, hopefully, and, for some of them, something's going to happen. They're like, I got retweeted a bunch of times. I don't know. You win, right? It's not an experiment. Why don't you use that to your advantage? All right. Okay, that sounds good. Thanks. All right. All right, believe it or not, I have another person to thank. I know. So you see all these little microphones around. This is all due to Fred Castaneda, who's right over here. Hey, Fred. He hangs out at CoSpace a lot, too, which just goes to show again how cool CoSpace is. And Fred's doing all the audio. This is all his super expensive audio equipment. And he described to me all these things that I forgot now, like whether this is at a 90-degree angle or a 120-degree angle. And all the AV guys are like, oh, you're such an idiot. But anyway, all this cool stuff, Fred set that up. And is also, if you're listening to this on the podcast, he also mixed it and did a fantastic job, hopefully. But you'll see. Anyway, Fred has a podcast of his own called Struggling Entrepreneur, strugglingentrepreneurial.com. You can imagine what that is about because it's also a good name. And he interviews people all the time in different phases of their business, and it's a bunch of fun. And I've been on there once. Maybe I'll be in there again if I'm lucky.
Your posts are always in there.
And my posts are in there, apparently. So there you go. So thanks, Fred, for doing all the audio.
So next up is PJ. He's a CoSpace member, and he's going to read for someone who wants to remain anonymous. So
Okay, so
go easy on him. Josh wanted it.
so picking this up, this is an anonymous person, and I guess we'll find out why in a second.
I tried to get the person to wear a disguise, but it didn't go over. So
Well, he did
Okay.
disguise as PJ.
Yeah, he's disguised as me.
Very believable.
Yeah. Hey, I'm really glad to be sitting up here in front of everybody. Even though this isn't my thing, so I did speak with him for about 5 minutes about more of the situation here. My surrogate, I'll just say, we help people in neighborhoods communicate and connect. So think web app, people can build communities around it. I am a CEO that's very passionate about what I'm doing, and I am and I'm really committed to what I do, and I don't necessarily want to have to pivot. But what should a founder do when it becomes evident that the correct pivot for a company's product leads to an area where he has little or no passion? Everyone's telling me I need to pivot in this direction. I'm not passionate about it. Should I rework the product until people respond differently, find a new CEO, or what? I have investors.
That's a great question.
I have investors, that's why I don't want...
This is a great question, and that is a good reason to not want to do it in public. And this is one of those that's really hard to answer without being able to do Q&A, because what it comes down to is what you really want. And I mean in life, and that those kind of like big
Look out there.
questions,
Look out there.
person. And so it really gets down to what's important to you.
Community building is
If you-
important to me.
Yeah. So no, but that's not what I mean. I mean what you really want. Like, do you want to be an entrepreneur? Do you care? Like, is it more important to be an entrepreneur and have a company, or is it more important to do something like build a community? I mean, you can be a community leader of 5 things, and maybe that's enough. That can be enough. You don't have to be a goddamn entrepreneur. It's okay, right? There's lots of ways to be fulfilled and maybe even add more value to yourself, more happiness to yourself and those very communities by being super involved in them. You don't have to do this. On the other hand, if you have investors, you do have a fiduciary responsibility to them for the company. So it could make sense to say, okay, I do have a real duty, maybe even an ethical one, to kind of see this through somewhere. But again, like, it's very hard without being able to ask questions to come up with something very specific about what that could mean.
Well, he's given me some. I mean, I've.
Do you know how much money he's raised?
No, I don't.
So I would kind
I
of
would say less than $1 million would be my guess.
Okay, so that helps. I would kind of put it into buckets based on like how much money's been raised and what, and that's a vague bucket, but really it's more actually what the investors' expectations are around that. So like, if you raise $500,000 and you go try to do something and it doesn't work, most investors I know that are investing at that stage and that amount of money, they shouldn't be doing that unless they understand that there's a chance they could lose their money and it's not going to work. And most of them I think would not think you're some terrible person if at the end of that you give it an honest try and they feel like you really put an effort in and it didn't work.
But
and then at the same time, if you obviously they can't feel like you like quit too early or you didn't really give it a real try. But if you've raised a lot of money, or what feels like you've really kind of built it up and you've sold that you were going to go deliver on this and you said you're really committed to it, then I think there's more of an obligation to go try to produce a return for your investors or take care of them and take care of their money. From a selfish perspective, just because you might want to go do something again later and they're not going to invest in you again if they don't feel like you acted responsibly. And that's kind of the fiduciary responsibility that Jason talked about. So I think it's gonna vary in there on kind of where you're at, but life's short. Like, you definitely shouldn't be working on something you don't want to do and you're not excited about it. I think that's a great reason to say, all right, great, that's what we should do. I'm not going to do it. If we can, if there's somebody else that wants to come in and do this, or we can find someone else to do it, great. Then I should step away and I should expect to give up a bunch of equity. And if I don't want to do it, I'm going to give up a lot in that too. Right. But at the same time, I think there's also an obligation of I'm not a quitter. I'm gonna try to make the best of this and see it through and take care of my investors as best I can.
Yeah, what I heard was that there is another path. There is a correct path to take. It's not that it failed. It needs to pivot. It's not a failure. It's just different, and you're not up for the different part.
But the pivot, I think, in this gentleman's case, if I don't mean to interrupt you, Jason, but there's so many people who have already pivoted into this space, and none of them are making any money either.
So it's not that it's obvious this is the answer.
Right. I mean, if people are pivoting into Groupon, or people are pivoting into geolocation or something, there's a lot of people doing that kind of thing. We're talking about community engagement, within a housing addition or within a local community. So I think what you said is that can be enough in itself. But the pivot, if everyone is saying pivot into these places where no one is making money, now what?
Are the investors one of the sets of people saying you have to pivot?
I believe the investors are maybe putting some pressure on this gentleman.
And is it true that the business is really a fundamentally different business when it pivots? It's not. It's really you might as well start from scratch, except we had a team.
From him, it's not fundamentally different, but.
So what? So if it's not fundamentally, I mean, again, this is why it's Q&A. But
It's the passion part.
I know. But if it's not fundamentally different, then why is there no passion anymore? What happened?
Right. I don't. Yeah.
There's a trivial change that suddenly you're not interested at all. Like, I mean, no, it could be. No, there's something. There's obviously is a reason, right? And I don't mean that facetiously, but it would help to know what it is.
Yeah.
To be specific about how to fix it. But I will say one other thing, especially if it's a small amount, which means it's not, like big VC. It's angels or friends and family or something. We, as entrepreneurs, we feel like we go through all this stuff and we're in our head and we have anguish for all this stuff and we're worried about what people think and there's expectations of us from our friends and family and investors and other people and we feel all that. And what you forget is when it's an investor, especially an institutional investor, the investors have heard all of this shit before. None of this is new. Like, you've gone 7 years and you're burnt out and you don't want to tell your investors. They know that. They've been telling you to take a fucking vacation. You won't. And I in fact, I was once in a board meeting where they literally told somebody, we want you to take a sabbatical for 3 months. We think it would really help. We can tell you're burnt out. If you keep doing this, you're definitely going to leave. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you what, if you take the sabbatical for 3 months and you come back and you're still burnt out, you can just leave. We don't care. We'll still pay you for the 3 months. But we think you need this. And we think that, like they know. Now, there's a sophisticated board, but still, the point is they know. Mm-hmm. So if the choice is total flush it down the toilet, I don't care anymore, I'm out. That's it. That's what you're facing. You're like, I have to do this. Mm-hmm. Well, then why not? Be super honest. Bring it in and say, look, this is a pivot. Whatever the reason is, hopefully it's a good one. Why it's the passion levels are so different. Mm-hmm. And just say, like, look, I want to work this out. I don't want to leave you in a bridge. And by the way, I'm not going to run out tomorrow. I want to make this right, even if it takes 6 months or a year to make it right. Let's all figure out how to make this right so that I'm not running it anymore, mm-hmm. Right? And I will help make it right. I'm not going to abandon it because I'm guessing that this person doesn't want to do that.
No, he's very high level of integrity.
And we could maybe, and so maybe, so offline or whatever you want to call it, we could maybe, talk a little bit more in detail and then come up with a specific way to do that or like a couple of ideas for how that might come about.
I'm sure he will be talking to you.
Yeah, I'm sure. Anymore, it's hard to do in the abstract.
No, I think that's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
It's like with everything in life, you got to balance. When do you quit? Mm-hmm. And on the one hand, the winners are the people that never quit, mm-hmm. by definition,
right?
At some point, and then on the other hand, you're stupid if you're just hitting your head against the wall.
But you got to cash out at some point, though. I mean, you do have to.
I don't think this wasn't about
I
cashing
cashed out.
right?
I cashed out.
Yeah.
Are you speaking as you now or this other person?
I did just speak as me. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Oh, well, congratulations. It's not helping.
All right. Then I will just step aside.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks. That's good. All right. Oh, yeah. Okay. Number 5.
Okay, for us,
All right. Name and company.
All right. For Oz, Smile, and the company is Trackster.
Trackster. Is that spelled in a normal way, or is it like X's and no vowels? It's Trackster. Okay, well, you're tracking something. When we first had a child, we tracked. I mean, the amount of stuff we tracked. I mean, we had this log, and my wife made this thing in Excel, and it was like every little, it had a poo-poo, it was a little poo-poo, not a big poo-poo, it was green, it was brown, it was a little green and brown, it was green on the left, brown on the right, maybe, her left, her right, the whole chart of thing, and you needed it, because God forbid, like that poo-poo didn't come out every day, and we're sitting there doing past 24 hours, it was a whole mess, and there is software that we eventually started using to trackster that stuff. So to me, the last time I had to track something that closely was that. So even though the name's not there, I'm going with Poo Poo Tracker.
I need to check into what song you're listening to.
Okay. Well, it's completely different from both of those.
What's wrong, man?
Well, it helps students at UT track events on campus.
Events. Isn't there already an event calendar somewhere they can look at?
Yeah, but it's not very helpful.
Why?
Because it's just a list and in an email, and you can't really tell what's going on.
But it's a list in an email of what's going on. So why can you not tell what's going on?
No one looks through it because
no one looks
very
at it.
plain text.
Okay. So yours is not. It is instead what?
It's an interactive tool to help students find what they're interested in and just explore.
I have no idea what that means. Is it a calendar? Do I see a calendar? What do I see? What is it?
You just you put in like your interests and what type of academic events you're been a part of and what you want to be a part of, and it supplies you and recommends like events to you based on that information.
Okay, so it's like a recommendation engine for events,
It helps you like.
but just at UT, or is that just where you're starting? Because the data's there and so on.
It's starting with UT because I'm going there right now.
Right. So it could grow into next. For example, it could be like, oh, you go to this event and other things in Austin, and you didn't even know there was an event to do X, Y, and Z, but it's telling you that, and that's super interesting to you, right?
That's a possibility,
Mm-hmm.
but we're starting off with academic events.
Okay. So what's the question?
So the question is, what's a good way to engage students to use the service or incentivize organizations to promote the tool?
Well, I can tell you how I got. Well, no, I can tell you how I got 25,000 people at UT, students, to use my software at UT when I was going there. And hopefully this won't get me arrested because it was not legal. So what I did is at UT, I don't know if they still do this, but there was a student directory in the mainframe system, which was UT-CAT, right? I don't know if they still have UT-CAT for the, yeah, okay. Anyway, so it's a green screen, right? You know what that means? No. Yeah, okay. This is not going well. All right. Anyway, you know what Telnet is? SSH? Have you done that? Oh, good. Okay, so it's like SSH, except that's your whole world. It never gets better than that. There's no iPhones, that's it. Right? Text, columns text, right? So you could go into this thing and you could search for a name and find names, and it had an email address for the student in the UT-CAT, which of course now, I don't know if they could even do that nowadays. So what I did is I logged in and I searched for nothing, which gets you to the first name, and then it shows you 10 names. Then I would do a screen print, except instead of a printer, I sent it into a text file. So there's all the characters, right? And then I would have the thing hit enter on the little search line, which would get you the next page. Then I did that, whatever 50,000 divided by 10, well, I guess I know what that is, but divided by the page size is, and there was this big ass text file. Then I wrote a script to go in there and go get all the emails, which was pretty easy because they're all in the same place, because it's a mainframe, so it's not like it word wraps or does anything. Mainframes don't do that kind of stuff. They just put stuff in the same place every time. It's really nice for that screen scraping. Then I got all the email addresses, and guess what I did next? I emailed everybody more than once and said, hey, I've got this really cool thing called fastscheduler.com that schedules all your things at UT. I don't know.
Pretty spam.
Yeah, like email was pretty sweet already. Like I doubt a lot of them even checked that at that point, right? Like even knew that existed. Anyway, then I got in the paper and all this stuff, and I got calls from the tower where the people with money are, which I thought I was going to go get reprimanded for sending emails, but they didn't know about that because they're not that sophisticated either. And so what they really brought me in there is that they wanted to have Fast Scheduler because they had no way of doing online class scheduling, and so this sounded pretty good. And here's the big offer. So this is my first offer to have a company of mine be purchased, essentially. And the offer was that I could work there for $7 an hour. That was the whole offer. I declined the offer. Anyway, that's how I got a lot of students at UT to look at Fast Scheduler. I'm not saying I condone it. I'm just saying it's one way to do it.
So, hack into the computer school system, steal the email addresses, and spam everybody. That would be Jason's suggestion.
No, I'm not condoning it. I'm just making an example.
My suggestion was pay them. People, students especially.
What if you don't have any money to start off with?
Actually, Josh has good stories about getting college students to do stuff, right? Right, Trilogy, when the shirts and everything, right?
Well, that's still spending a lot of money, though.
Yeah.
That was Trilogy. Yeah.
But you don't have money, right?
Alcohol is as good as money. But so that's the whole thing. Like, it's like so many people come with a technology solution. Like, look, I built this thing, right? Like, look, I built this. It's cool. I built this thing, and it's just lots of people used it and forecast it all the time, and they'd be great. And they don't fundamentally understand that that's the easy part most of the time. Like that's why it's so easy to come up with. It's like, yeah, I know how to do that. I want to make something that lets you check into a location. So I can like make a list and I'm gonna check in and they're gonna hit the check-in button and then it's gonna write that in the database. They checked in and it's like that's the easy part. The hard part is getting people to do anything. Like anything. Just anything at all for free or paying them is really hard. And so that's like having a really good business idea is often more about having a really clever idea about how you're going to get people to do something than about what they're actually doing. and it's so depressing, right? Like you want it to be that you thought of this great idea, and that was the thing, and actually it was those damn marketing guys that like they had that was what mattered, is they knew how to go sell it. Right? It's like, anyone know what Proactive is? You've seen them advertising that everywhere, right? Like, I don't know that much about it, but I've seen it. I've read about some case studies about it, and like, it's just like there's nothing really that special about it. They're just really good marketers, and they figured out how to get it to the right people in the right way and the right marketing, and like they went and pumped this product out, right, and made a crap load of money. But then they didn't really invent. It wasn't that they had some really great secret sauce that actually really worked better than everything else. And maybe someone will dispute that, but that was the stuff that I read. And I think a lot of things are going to come out that way. So for you, it's like that's the thing, is like, can you come up with some really clever way to get it in front of everybody? And like the thing, when Facebook started, when Jason did what he was talking about, like sometimes like you can get in ahead of the system, and then it's like those things just don't even apply anymore. Like you're in a whole different world. You can't do that anymore. Like it used to be like search marketing was like a way to go do stuff, and now it's like totally saturated and overpriced, and like it's not nearly as good of a place to get into things.
So I have some ideas for you. Because Josh is right, that is the hard part for almost every company on earth. That's the part that's hard. But I have some ideas, because having tried to monetize Fast Scheduler, I actually went down some of these roads, and so I have two ideas for you. The way to think about this, I think, is who is it that actually does care? Because the individual student sitting there in Jester thinking, God, I am literally living in a prison. I'm literally in a prison. Did you know that Jester was designed, this story about why Jester looks like a prison? Jester was the second largest dormitory on Earth, and then this dormitory in Russia burnt down, so now it's the #1 biggest dormitory on Earth, Jester. And if anybody's ever seen it, it's like, all it is just a bunch of kind of sepia-toned brick with these teeny little windows, just like a prison. And the reason is the person who designed it designed prisons. That is what they did. They literally designed a prison, and that's Jester. All with the fold-out beds and all that kind of stuff, and much the same activity too, as from what I can tell. But so this person sitting there in Jester, like mourning the fact that like the bed has to slide away, or else they can literally touch the the walls with both hands. They don't care at all about your tool. They just don't care. So the question is, who does? Who has a vested interest in seeing you succeed? It's not anyone in Jester. So I can think of at least two groups of people who care. Number one is all those event organizers, because they have the exact same problem you have. They want to get people to come to their event, and they don't give a crap. Partially because they just don't, and partially because they don't know about it in the first place. They have the same problem. You're friends. So, for example, you could go to all of them, all of the events at campus, which obviously, because you probably scraped it from somewhere, and you could tell them all, hey, it's in all of our interest to get all of our attendees to use this site, because even though it will, of course, introduce them to other events, the people that came to your event already know about your event. You're not losing someone. But if we all do this, we will all get more people to come out to events, period. We should all of the events should promote to all of their members every time your service, because it is in their personal interest to do so. Now, will that make them do it? I don't know, but that's a lot. That's suddenly a whole lot of promotion, because they want to. And the other set of people, and this is getting more into the business aspect, I guess, is there's this whole ecosystem around UT of people who also want to get to students who don't care. Like Gaddy's, who wants to deliver the pizza. And the bars on 6th Street, who want you to go to that bar on 6th Street, right? There's all these people who really want to get to to students. So like one of the ideas I had for Fast Scheduler, if you just say advertising, it's like, well, just a general advertising is not going to do anything. But what could is you find just one business, just one, that's somewhere in the campus area or on 6th Street area and so forth, just one who wants to use you to get to students, and you give them the whole run of the site. It's going to be, what'd you say the name of the thing was? Trackster. Pretty good name. But maybe, yeah, okay. So anyway, it's going to be the sponsor of Trackster. It's going to say Trackster brought to you by Papa John's. Maybe not quite as obnoxious, right? But it's going to be just Papa John's, or just Gaddy's, or just the bar on 6th Street that, just Sherlock's. So they probably don't want students. I don't know. Maybe they do. But you know what I mean? Like just one. And they get the whole run of the site, and it's in every newsletter. It's on every page. It's on everything. And it's still not that many page views. It's okay. Like that's not what you're selling. That's what you sell to generic advertisers. But there's someone who's sort of desperate. Like Gaddy's went. They went bankrupt. They probably want people to show up, and they probably have some advertising budget. And maybe it's cheap. It just starts out $100 a month, and maybe when you get more traffic, you could ask for more. Just get something, some kind of interest to get it going. But here's the other thing. Whoever that is, maybe they can distribute it. So like one of the things I did is I talked to, I think it was Papa John's operator near campus, and I said, hey, you should put a flyer on top of the Papa John's box, because they always do that. that goes back to me. So you'll sponsor the site, you'll promote the site, and if people follow, they still see you again, so that you're not losing anything. In fact, it's better. So it's sort of like the coupon thing, except it's you. And that's what you want. You want every pizza that goes into your tea to have you on it. Big flyer. They can't miss it on the top of the pizza. They can help distribute it, and in exchange, they'll have advertising. And don't worry about, like, am I still doing that in a year? No, you're not. You're doing this for a month just to see what the hell happens, right? So who has a vested interest in seeing you succeed, and go make friends with them and see if you can help each other spread the word about each other.
See, to me, that sounds a little bit of, if I were to paraphrase that part of it was, get together all the people that have stuff that nobody wants to see. Put all that in one place. And tell all the people that nobody wants to listen to yell as loud as they can and see if then lots of other people see it. And then go to the company that's bankrupt and try to get them to pay. So while that may work for Jason, because he's a really good sales guy, I'm not really buy it. I think you need to think about, like, why is someone going to use it for the first time? What's the benefit to them? Like, for the URL betterer guy, it was, we're gonna get more people to click on the links, right? And it's like all that, once you nail that thing, we're all just assuming that's actually true, that it's gonna make more people click on the links. But if that were true, like, that's all you need to say, and now I know why.
Well, I know what the one thing is. It's more sex.
Yeah.
There's got to be meeting people. It has to be meeting people.
Get our newsletter and you'll have more sex. Like,
Yes.
Seller, you're not gonna.
Yeah, it's got to be more sex. It's more sex.
And so, what's the substitute for more? Since you can't actually say more sex,
You
like,
could.
What's the?
You could say that.
Well, you could, but if you, but it is like you got to really wrap your head around, like, the way you described it was like, here's what you're gonna do to get me to get you to the thing I want you to do. Like, you're gonna come in, you're gonna put in your interests. Nobody wants to come in and put in their interests. They want the thing at the end, like they want the what am I gonna get? And like
Sex.
And if it's, I'm going to tell you what events to go to, honestly, you got to work on that one. Like that doesn't sound to me like super compelling, really big problem. Like, wow, I'm going to really take some time out today and make sure to go sign up for this thing because I'm really concerned. I don't know what events to go to. Like, you got to figure out how to, like, make that more sex.
So you said you don't want to go there. What do you want to go to?
I just want to be a porn site.
Yeah, that.
No. I mean, you're not. You're a means to an end. I mean, everyone's crawling.
Educational events.
Everyone's crawling around UT. What are they doing? What are they spending like 90% of their time doing? You sound so dejected. It's like, is it true? Maybe it's not true. Maybe they don't want sex. No sex.
The thing we're looking to do is just like help save time and just better your own personal goals.
Right, because that's what everyone at UT goes around. Hey dude, what are you doing tomorrow night? Dude, I'm bettering my own personal goals. I'm gonna be so much better. You know why? Going to an event. Found it on Trackster. I'm so gonna be better tomorrow than you did. What are you doing? Go to a party, dude. Oh.
Gonna have sex.
Dude.
I mean, it sounds kind of harsh, but like you got to get over that, right? Like you're describing it as you're gonna help better yourself. Like, that's not how people talk, and that's not how students talk. I mean, I'm bald. I'm not like a student anymore, but I'm pretty sure that's not it.
No, and so you can still keep. The goal is, of course, to do. I mean. Okay, that's what you want to get. You don't have to say that, obviously, but that's the thing. That is kind of the thing. Okay, so you could widen that a little bit and say meeting people, because maybe I go to the event to learn stuff, but like I go to class to learn stuff, and I know the events and the meetups and stuff are also about learning stuff. Oh, okay, but I think it's fair to say, without invoking sex, that also is to meet other people who are interested in the same stuff you are, and to together like do more of that stuff. That's what the astronomy club is. You learn a little bit in astronomy club, but mostly it's going to be in the astronomy classes. And the club is just hanging out with other people who like to look at Mars again at 9:45, at the top of RLM. That's what we're doing. And okay, sex is probably also there, and that may be the end goal. But like, it's also meeting people. That's fine. So you could go there, meet people, meet more people who like the stuff you like. Here's one. Everybody says you go to college and you discover who you are, and you find out that, oh my God, there's other geeks like me who like weird stuff, like looking at Mars all the time. And everyone kicked the crap out of me in high school. And here, if I go to the roof of RLM, or wherever the hell that is, right, I get to look at Mars with other people who don't think that I'm weird. In fact, I might even be able to have sex with some people up here. because they don't think I'm weird. That's not a turnoff. It's the reverse. Okay, so even if you stop short of the sex, it's still, you could tap into that. I'm going to college, and part of that is I'm accepted by the other people on this roof in the middle of the night when we should be. When I can see, I'm looking at Arlen, and I'm looking towards Mopac, and I can see there's these awesome parties that I'm not a part of over there. And I wish they would turn the lights downward because I'm trying to see in a light pollution, right? Like everyone's thinking that. So maybe you can tap into that aspect. Leave off the sex, even though that's there, obviously, and go to find other people just like you. You're not alone. People do want to do this. Did you even know that people are doing this? This is how it is. The UT is one of the biggest campuses on Earth, if not the biggest undergrad program or in the country, I should say. This is part of what the experience is. You give it to them. Let them go to sex in their own head, and you don't say it. And it's absolutely true. And they can go there themselves. And they will, of course.
Okay.
Does that sound good?
Yeah.
All right. So what is your line now? It's you should sign up here because you will
Meet other people with your same interests.
That sounds better. I think if you worked on it and you really thought about how can I bring that, because you're on the spot obviously, but if you can think about, I think that's better. Meet other people like you. For example, do you have a secret hobby? Do you have a secret interest? I guarantee you on a campus of 50,000 people, there are hundreds of people who actually share that. And this is how you find them. Because you certainly can't broadcast it. This is how you find them. That sounds pretty awesome. Okay, thanks. Let's see, where's Sarah? Do we have time for one more, Sarah? What do you think?
It's after 9.
Come on up. Great, come on up.
Don't worry, you'll feel pain.
we'll apply pressure to the brain
I
brain.
can't wait now.
All right.
Okay, and your company name is?
There's no company yet.
Okay, that's fine. So what's going on?
Okay, well, there's a pain point when you go into a big, huge store like Walmart or Costco when it comes to finding a little narrow jar of olives from a particular place. And also maybe you care about a sweater in some other stores.
Okay.
Because I have a hardware background, I know we're really close to solving that problem with just very
What
little
problem?
hardware. Finding that little jar of olives.
Easy. I go to Amazon and it's there and I buy it. What else you got?
Okay. Well, then those stores are in trouble.
No kidding.
Yeah,
Of course they're in trouble.
definitely.
They started with the bookstores and closed most of them down.
Yes.
All right, now they're moving on to the other ones. And maybe they won't close them down, but if I want a specialty thing, I go get it.
Yeah.
I use Google, and by the way, I said Amazon. Not even that. I go put it into Bing. Isn't the whole point of Bing that it can find me like 27 different ways that I can get this thing from the wholesaler and some weird-ass retailer who's like drop shipping directly? Who even knows why? I don't care. All I know is there's like 20 things to pick from. They all have weird ratings. They've shipped these same olives 17,000 times, and their rating is 4.9 out of 5. Fine, buy it. Right?
Mm-hmm. Very true. Very true.
All right, so?
Most of the businesses, most of the money that or consumerism that can happen happens indoors, unless it's always going to be on the net.
And so you have a chip that finds where a product is in a store?
Yeah, kind of think of it as earphones. It's just something really simple that you can add to your phone, and it would be like earphones.
So I'm in Central Market and I'm shopping around and I got my normal stuff and then I'm like, oh man, I need these weird olives. Now I go to the olive section because I know where that is. I can ask somebody. I go to the olive section. Like I know it's not where the coffee is. I go to the olive section, right? And there's a wall of olives and I go, oh my god. So is this chip accurate enough? It's going to tell me it's right over there?
Yeah, it would.
Yeah?
Yeah. It would be
How does that work?
Centimeter resolution. Most of the location systems are not that good, and they're statistical and not
Let
always.
me start with Home Depot. I'm always lost in Home Depot.
Yeah,
Well, that's true.
Or right, like Home Depot and
Although the people that go to Home Depot, they just know where everything is.
yeah,
They would never walk around with the thing. Right? Like,
that's very true. And now they've got more people waiting at the front to help you out. So I certainly that's
so what's the question?
okay. Then the question was, how can I find what I want? Like you said, you can go on the net and just do a search. And
Yeah, I think everyone knows that.
Well, there's another issue that businesses have. They want to know if their floor layout is working. There was a story where some guy gave peanuts to everyone who walked in, and then
What's the question?
The store is
Yeah, what's the question?
sorry. Businesses want to know.
No, what's the question is,
Oh, I'm sorry. Then I'm sorry. The question that I have is, I'm looking for. It's like an HR question. Where are the technical people?
You want to hire people?
Huh?
You want to hire people?
Yeah. Sorry. I want to hire people. I want to hire some like an engineer.
Do you have money to hire them with?
No, it's really.
Oh, that's not really hiring people.
Okay.
So,
What do you mean with
Indentured
money?
servitude.
right. So you want people to be co-founders and are technical to do something. So you got to have some great idea, which they're also going to buy into wholesale, and they're going to want to forego salary and do whatever they're going to do. They're going to quit their job for 6 months, or they're going to work on the side, whatever the hell they're going to do, where they're investing themselves into this. And whatever it is, which is obviously undefined at this point, because you talked for a while and we don't know what it is yet. So if you can define what it is and make it really exciting, then maybe you can find someone who also thinks it's really exciting, and you found a co-founder. Now, also, it would be nice if it wasn't just an idea, but the Home Depot in Austin, Texas is all ready to go. We just have to build it. But they already signed off and said, look, we're going to do it. We're going to be a pilot. We get it. And if that works, we're going to take it. It'd be great if that was all done, which you should be able to do if this idea is so good. You don't need a prototype. You don't need a little gadget that fits in your ear. You should be able to walk in and go, what if I had, and whatever the thing is, which you haven't figured out yet. And it should be so amazing that they just go, oh my God. We're in. We're in. Just build us and come back. We're absolutely in, 100%. And you say, but I didn't even tell you the price yet. They're like, fine, $1,000, we're in. If you have that, it sounds pretty good. But you don't have that yet.
I did a little building of a prototype to see how well.
And so, what store owner said, I'm in for $1,000?
Sorry, no.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's the thing to do. Forget the prototype. You got to get them to buy in on the thing before it exists.
Okay.
Before it exists, you don't need anything to go figure this out.
Okay.
When I started WordPress Engine, I started by I literally had nothing. No website, no domain name, no company name. I didn't know what the features would be. I didn't know, right? I didn't know anything. And I just thought, like, I need this thing for my blog. My blog goes down every time I get on Hacker News. So it seems like other people might have this problem with their WordPress blogs. Maybe. Like, it's plausible, right? And so maybe I'll go out there and talk about how we won't go down. Not TechCrunch themselves, but like if you got an article on TechCrunch, we wouldn't go down. That kind of thing, like for the masses that might. And then also it would be faster in the process, like your site would load faster, and something else maybe. And I had a bunch of ideas about what something else might be. And I just started talking to people. I had nothing, no PowerPoints, nothing. And I just started saying, well, if I had this thing and it was WordPress and it was scalable, would you buy it? And they say no. Why not? Well, I do get a traffic hit sometimes, but it's not all the time. Like, I'm not going to switch and do all this stuff and pay more money and all this crap just for that. No. Well, okay, but did I mention that also we're super good at security? Oh, no, you didn't mention that. Yeah, and WordPress isn't actually that insecure. It's usually the hosting company and other things around that. And anyway, that's us, and we do blah, 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 blah things to fix it. Oh, well, that sounds better. I don't want to get hacked. Or it's sort of like backup, where nobody buys backup software and then they crash. And one day they lose everything. They're like, crap. And they're like, the first thing they do when they get the machine back is they buy the backup software. Anyone who's gotten hacked is the same way. If you say hacked to someone who got hacked, they go, bing, I'm in. How much did you say? $50 a month? In. Right? Because they've had that. So I talked to literally 30 different people. And some of them got off on the security, some was the speed, some was the staging area, whatever. And at the end of it, I found, again, nothing. I had nothing but yakking, like this, right? And I finally ended up with, okay, there's 3 things that if I do this, they'll pay $50 a month. Price too. Price has to be part of it too. Then we started. And of course, then people bought it. I already knew that, because if I could find 30, and out of the 30, 20 said they do it, there's going to be 20,000 of them too, in a market as big as WordPress. So you could do the same thing. If you had a thing that was so good that you could find several store owners in Austin who said, well, I'm definitely in on the trial. Like, I need to see this work. I would pay $1,000 or whatever the hell it is if it worked. If you found them, and then you know if there's 3 in Austin, then of all the chains and stuff that then you multiply by orders of magnitude. However, I don't know what it is that you're talking about yet, but this is what you do in order to try to get the proof that this is even something worth doing. What is the idea? Is it solving something they give a crap about? And then you can go find a tech guy to give up his job.
Then you can go get money easily because you've done all that other stuff.
Maybe.
You can just go hire a tech guy because if you've proven all that, it's easy to go get a check to say, look, I've got these customers. They say they're going to pay me this much once I build this thing. So give me the money so I can build the thing so I can get paid by them. And
yeah, it sounds so easy. I'll just go talk to them and discover some stuff. It's really hard, and most people don't do it. Like, I'm telling you this, and I if I had to bet, I would bet definitely, like, very good odds that you won't talk to anyone. And the next best odds is you'll talk to maybe 3 people. and then make a decision one way or another. Neither of those is right. But that's what most people do. I don't know if you'll do it or not. I just bet it because that's what people do. You tell them to go talk to 30 people. They hear me say 30 people, and they're like, and they go talk to 3 people, and they sort of make up their mind. That's not it. It's 30 people, not 30. We want to do some new stuff at WordPress Engine right now. I've talked to 20 people. I need to talk to some more. I think I've got it, but I'm still going to talk to more. I'm not confident, even though I've talked to all those people, even now, in all these things. That's the deal. And most people won't do it, and so they won't put in the time.
Okay. So you need certainly a better sample to get a better idea, or something that's going to be.
You know, you say things like people have a problem finding the olives. The question is this: does the person who runs Central Market think that's a problem?
Right.
It could be a problem, but if they don't think it's a problem, it doesn't matter. Like, there's a whole lot of things that have to work. They think it's a problem. People aren't buying olives as much as they should, or whatever the hell, which is probably not true. People go to Central Market to buy weird olives, right? So, like, all these things have to be true for them to think this is a problem. So it's unlikely that they do, but you might find something else out. You might go in there talking about the olives, and they go, God, I don't give a crap about olives, but let me tell you something. My warehouse is a disaster. I just lost 4 pallets of olives because they were in the goddamn corner. We have nothing tracking that. And all these olives that I imported from wherever they're supposed to go on the shelf rotted. I guess olives don't rot, so maybe it's a bad example. But you know what I mean, right? Like, something rots in the corner because they didn't know it was there. I need a tracking system for the warehouse. Oh. Like, who knows what you find out when you go talk to the people who are living this thing and have the money. So I also would not be married to the nebulous sort of idea that you have. But if you have certain skills, like, I'm good at geo, I got some some mobile or whatever the hell it is that you've got, just be super open-minded to, like, well, he just talked about the warehouse. Let's talk about the warehouse some more. Don't be fixated on this one idea. What is going on in there that maybe you could build?
Okay, so find out what they really need.
Yeah.
They're in basically the real world where they're facing the problems.
Basically the real world. Yeah, that's the best place to be. Basically that. Yeah. Basically. Pretty much. That plus a little bit of Narnia, something like that.
Okay.
Yeah. A little bit of Never-Ending Story, yeah.
Well, I appreciate it.
Okay, thanks. All right. Well, thanks everyone for coming. This was a bunch of fun for me anyway. I don't know if, did everybody like that? You want us to do this again sometime? Yeah, awesome. Okay, well then we probably will. I think Sarah's about to fall over, right? Sorry. What? Sarah did it. Let's have a round of applause for Sarah too. Organize the whole thing. And of course, she's a fundamental member at CoSpace, which just proves again how awesome CoSpace is. So anyway, thanks everybody for coming. See you soon.